Welcome back to Symbiotic Vibration, and welcome to Episode 4 of A Survivor's Guide to Survival. In Episode 3 we spoke about acceptance, the beginning phases of starting to integrate into your system what it is that's happening to you. It's not going to be an easy ride to accept what it is that's happening to you. We spoke about that in detail. But as we do begin to accept, as we do begin to integrate, we will start to understand that we can deal with this situation, and from here on out, we're going to do just that. So today, we're going to speak about research and understanding. It is an important topic, in my opinion, to empower yourself to take on the role of trying to understand what it is that's happening to you. We will speak about it in some detail. I will provide you with some lists, some guides along the way that may help you in terms of researching what it is that's going on for you. And so today, within this episode, we will speak about why I think research is important. I will give you a little story of what it felt like for me to research and how that actually saved my life. I will give you a list of basic general tools and topics that you could be researching as you move on from this episode. We will speak about discernment, we will speak about intuition, we will speak about confirmation bias, and I'm going to speak about emotional triggers and how to deal with those in the present while you're researching. In future, we will expand on emotional triggers in a whole episode, but for now, we will deal with emotional triggers that arise while we are researching. And finally, we will speak about overconsumption and how that can actually become a negative thing, how we can use consumption of information to avoid our emotions and to repress and use it as a crutch. So, that's it. And before we get going, I'd like to tell you where we are. We are at the Athassel Priory in Priory. It's a wonderful structure. It was built in 1150 onwards towards the early 1200s by a man called Willem de Burgh. It's absolutely wonderful. It's the oldest medieval priory in Ireland, and it's over 4 acres wide and long. So I can show you bits and bobs as we move along, scene by scene, and perhaps I'll give you a little monologue at some point. But this place is incredible. And interestingly enough, it was home to the Normans while the Normans began to invade Ireland in the 1150s, which was really the beginning of the dissolution of the old Celtic and Viking ways. So it's fascinating for me as somebody who honours his Celtic lineage, his Viking lineage, to be here to witness what would have been one of the initial settlements that housed the English, the Normans, the Augustinians, before they began to invade Ireland, or while they began to invade Ireland. So, yeah, how incredible. Now, let's move on. Echo. So this is a little bridge on the way into the Priory that I'm sure I will show you. But before we get into the Priory and before we get into the meat and bones of the episode, I would like to produce my first disclaimer. It's important as we get into the nitty-gritty details of this series for you to know that I'm not a medical professional, and I'd like you to take everything that I say with discernment. We will get into what that is within this episode if you don't understand. But basically, everything that I'm telling you throughout this series is my own experience. I had a brain tumour, yes. I suffered for a long time. And I'm still in recovery and always will be. And I'm doing my best. And I'm sharing my story and my journey within this experience in the hopes that it might guide you. Some of it will resonate with you, and that's beautiful. Some of it might guide you in the right direction, but some of it might not, and that's okay too. But what I would say is it is important that if you are suffering or you're going through something painful and you don't know what you're doing, then I would consult with medical professionals, as many as possible, because those people are heroes and they have information that is very important to you also. So it's nice for you to have a web of people to consult that will give you some much needed information with regards to what you're going through. So what I'm giving you is my experience, and if you can find some guidance from there, that's fantastic, but always consult with medical professionals. Welcome inside the Priory grounds. We haven't made it very far because, it's just amazing. I have made it 10 steps inside the first gate and the structure is right behind me. And I felt like it might be nice just to sit and get my feet on the grass and speak about why I feel like research and understanding is so important and why I'm developing a whole episode with regards to it. So here's the thing, and it can be quite a harsh reality to witness. It was for me, and it took me many, many years post-surgery to really understand what it is that I'm about to say and digest the information, because I held a lot of anger, I suppose, at the time with regards to some of the things that I'm about to speak about. And so here it is. In the early phases of a diagnosis or an illness, whatever it is that you're finding yourself struggling with right now, if you're dealing with or consulting with medical professionals, unfortunately, those people, those beautiful, beautiful people, are limited to a short amount of time with you, most likely. I know this from experience. I think most of the consultation meetings that I would have went to when I was trying to figure out what it is that I had in my brain were maybe 5 to 10 minutes long. I was lucky if I got 20 minutes or half an hour. And whilst these medical professionals are beautiful superheroes and the information that they're going to give to you is extremely important, and I would implore you to seek medical advice, there's not much time involved. There's not much information involved. The small amount of information that you're going to receive is vital, yes. But it can't fill all the space. It can't give you every answer that you need. It simply can't. There's not enough time. And that's absolutely okay. And here's the beautiful thing. You can take all of the information that you receive from these medical professionals, you can write it all down, you can use it as a blueprint, you can use it as a starting point. And then you can empower yourself. You can empower yourself to take in many viewpoints, to go searching forums, websites, social media platforms, the comment sections on this channel, the Instagram, the TikTok. Find as many viewpoints as you can, find as many people as you can that have actually been through what you're going through, because you'll find so much important information with regards to what you're going through from these people who have already walked the walk, who have already talked the talk. And believe me when I say this, because it saved my life. So that's what I'm trying to implore you to do, to empower you to go and digest as much information as possible in a healthy manner, and we will get to that soon, but to digest as much information as possible so that you can not replace the information that you receive from these medical professionals because it's so important, but you can complement it. You can build out from that framework and you can start to understand the complexities of your situation to a much more higher degree, which will bring a lot of calm and motivation along the way, and I promise you, because I've been through it. So, let's get into it. Let's start to understand maybe what it is that you could start to research. I'm going to give you a short story about how that actually saved my life now, because it might motivate you, and I'll do it from over there somewhere. So, I'm trying to keep this episode short and snappy, but I really don't know how long it's going to be, so. welcome inside the Priory. It's an absolutely scintillating place. It really is. I hope that the footage that I take will do it justice. I'll try to show you around as much as possible. But realistically, I would implore anybody to come here who's in Ireland or visiting Ireland. It really is. It's something to behold. I want to speak a little bit about how research and understanding saved my life. I told you just now about the importance of research, the importance of trying to digest as much information as possible to complement that of the medical professionals that you will be seeing along the way, trying to find real life advice from people who have walked the walk. Well, I am somebody who has walked the walk, and I would not be here today if it wasn't for my own intuition, if it wasn't for my own research. I would be dead 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit less than that. And so here it is. Last week I spoke about acceptance. I spoke about how I was diagnosed with a brain cyst that would inevitably be diagnosed again as a brain tumour, and that would have happened because of my research. So I'm going to try and keep this as snappy as possible because I want this episode to be somewhat short, but here it is. Whilst I was diagnosed in my country with a brain cyst, I would seek as much medical advice as possible. So I would have to go see neurosurgeons, I would have to see consultants with regards to my situation, with regards to my diagnosis. And everybody in my country that I went to see gave me the same information, that I was diagnosed with a pineal cyst, which was asymptomatic, which means it should not produce any symptoms. Now, I had a long, comprehensive list of all the symptoms that I was experiencing at the time, and actually, I'm going to put that up on screen right now because I have that in my house. So, you're probably looking at a list of symptoms right now. It was comprehensive, it was long, and I was told by all of the professionals that I was witnessing that this cyst was asymptomatic and that I wasn't feeling and shouldn't be feeling any of these symptoms, and perhaps they were psychosymptomatic. Perhaps I was creating them in my own mind. Perhaps I had some form of anxiety disorder alongside of my pineal cyst. Now, I had to sit with my gut and sit with my intuition all the way throughout this illness, and I knew deep down that there was something drastically wrong with me. I knew that there was something that was killing me from the inside, because if we will go back to the earlier episodes, I literally witnessed it grow. I witnessed the symptoms develop and develop from lower body all the way to my skull, and I knew that there was something disastrous happening. And so every time I would see a medical professional, albeit they were beautiful people and they did the best that they possibly could for me with the information that they had at the time, I couldn't digest that information. I couldn't accept that this was just an asymptomatic pineal cyst and it should not grow and it should not kill me, because I knew deep down that it was doing just that. So, upon my last consultant meeting, myself and my parents went. We saw a neurosurgeon. He was a beautiful man. I still am grateful for his presence and for his information, because all of it led me in the right direction, albeit his information was somewhat incorrect. It still guided me in the right direction, and I'm really happy that it happened. But anyway, I would be told once again that this was a pineal cyst. They can put me on pain management. It's the best they can do for me. I declined. Me and my parents left and we went home. It took us an hour to get home. We stopped for food on the way, and during that period there was little to no words spoken, and we would make it home. I would manically start to clean my room. My father would ask me a couple of times, was everything okay? I didn't say anything until the third time, when I dropped to my knees on my bed and I started to cry. And I cried for roughly an hour without stopping. And to be honest, that was the first time in my adult life that I was able to do so. And I'm so extremely grateful for that moment. I think about it often, and I have cried many, many times since, thankfully. But upon the end of that crying session, everybody went to bed that evening with no hope, except me. I did not go to bed. I didn't sleep. I spent the whole night scouring the internet. I went to every forum I could find, every social media platform I could find, every article I could find, trying to find some information that would validate what it is that I was feeling. And eventually I would stumble upon a story about somebody in my country who had been through the same exact situation, only it was many years prior, and she listened to those doctors for some time until eventually it got to the point where she was in desperation mode. And oh wow, that beautiful, beautiful woman saved my life, because I managed to contact her. I managed to find out more information. She actually came to my house and gave me as much information as she could with regards to the situation that she had gone through. So I had gone from having all of the medical advice, which was extremely powerful, to now complementing that advice with somebody who had actually walked the walk in the flesh in front of me, who navigated this situation for me, helped me to navigate it, and she pointed me in the right direction. She told me that her pineal cyst was indeed a pineal tumour, and that she didn't find out for a long time. She would have gone through some extreme health consequences because of that, and advised me to seek advice from elsewhere. And she pushed me in the direction of her surgeon, the man who saved her life. And inevitably, I would end up contacting that same man, who was just, it makes me emotional even thinking about it. He's just incredible. Whew, and he has the softest hands. Oh, yeah, the softest little man. Beautiful, beautiful human. And he saved my life, and I hope that I can introduce him to you someday. But yeah, essentially that's the story. I took the advice of medical professionals in this country, the best advice that they could possibly give me, with what they had, with the tools that they had. I then navigated this situation further through my own understanding, my own research, and I found other people on the internet, but I found somebody who I could speak to in the flesh, who pointed me in the right direction. And because of all of those things, I'm here. And it's incredible. And yeah, I guess that's the anecdote. That is it. I can't think of anything else to add to that. So yeah, look, like I said, the information that you receive from these medical professionals is extremely important, and I wouldn't hold any resentment or anger if I was you. I did personally until years after my surgery, and this is why I'm able to give you this integrated information. I think you should place some trust in medical professionals, absolutely, and don't get me wrong when I'm saying all of this, but also I think you should expand the information, complement it. Go and seek as much advice as you can from people who have actually been through what you've been through, and I promise you that it will ground you and it will help you along the way. Hopefully, at some point along the way, this beautiful family, the Symbiotic Vibration family, will be vast and will have much support to add. But right now we are a small little clan, and if you have any information with regards to anything that you're going through that you feel like could actually support somebody who's looking for answers right now, then I implore you to please share it with us in the comment sections, whether this be YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, but most certainly on YouTube, because it could help somebody. It really could. And if you seek any information from me and you're too insecure to bring it to the public light, don't be afraid to direct message me on any of these platforms or email me, and I will get to you as soon as I can, and I will help out as much as I can. And if not, I will send you in the right direction, or at least what I feel to be. So let's keep going. I hope you enjoyed my story. I think it was quite long, and this episode might be also long, but okay. This place, man. Oh, it's so soft. It's so tranquil. We have a pigeon. We have some crows and some ravens in the background. We have the sun coming up through this archway. And it is just spectacular on this Sunday morning. I feel very grateful. It's nice to share my story. It's nice to provide you with information. It's nice to be building this series, and I hope that you're enjoying it. I know that you possibly are struggling, or you know somebody that's struggling right now, and I hope that this information helps you in some way, shape or form. I really do. I'm going to spend the rest of my days building series like this one, trying to build this community and trying to help as many people as possible. And if you're watching, I would implore you to like this video, the little thumbs up button, and subscribe. The more subscribers I get, and the more likes I get, the more comments I get, the better it will be for the algorithm to try and get people to watch this information. And the way I see it, there's so many people out there that seek advice and seek help right now. So yeah, just know that by liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing, becoming a member of this family, it really helps out, and it could help somebody else. And it most certainly helps me. But anyway, I'm going to provide you with a list of things that I feel might help you in terms of beginning researching what it is that's happening for you right now. I'll list off a couple of important ones that I can think of right now, and at the end I will place a comprehensive list on screen that you can pause and screenshot. So essentially, everybody's going to have different problems, whether that be a mental problem or a health problem, physical, emotional, spiritual, but there's so many different avenues that we can go down in terms of digesting information that may help us along the way. Things like finding out what the most optimal nutrition is with regards to what it is that you're going through, your sleep, your circadian rhythm, exercise that may aid in your health and your recovery, mobility, things like yoga. We could look at the central nervous system and regulating it. We can look at emotional regulation. We can look at grounding techniques, like putting your bare feet on the grass, which I'm going to do as we speak. We can look into things like breath work, connecting to the breath. We can look into vagus nerve support. We can look into consciousness and spirituality. We can look into psychology and the mind, into trauma and how it imprints on our nervous system as well as our mind, and ways to deal with trauma. We can also look into energetic work, the chakras, alignment. We can look into alternative healing methods. Now again, as I said in my disclaimer, I'm no medical professional, so take my advice and use discernment, which we will speak about soon. But I'll leave a comprehensive list, as much as I can think of, on this screen right now, and you can screenshot it if you want, and you can go look into any of these topics. Now, like I said, be patient with yourself. You don't have to go on a rampage and find out all of the information about all of these topics right now. In fact, we're going to talk about overconsumption at the end of this episode. So be patient, take in small amounts of information at a time. And if it becomes overwhelming, take a break. We will talk about that also. We will also talk about emotional triggers that may arise and how to deal with them. So, yeah, let's move on inside. Oh man, this place. outside the church. It's incredible, and we're being accompanied by much bird song, and that makes me really happy. Already we've spoken about why research is important, complementing information that you receive from medical professionals and trying to take information from those who have walked the walk to try and help you along your path. I've given you an actual real-life example of how research could save your life. I've given you a comprehensive list of subjects that I feel could help you along the way. Do not feel obliged to go through that list. It's just a helpful tool that might help you along the way. If you have any more information or subjects or topics that I might have missed that you feel could help others, then please feel free to add those to the comment sections as well, because again, the more information that we can add to these comment sections, to these series, then the better it is for the future generations that may come here and watch. And while we're in this church, I'd like to speak about discernment, which is a really important skill that we need to craft along our lives. Yes, we are born with it innately, but more often than not, it's forgotten about. What that really means, discernment, well, if you're going to embark on a journey of research and understanding what it is that's going on to you, then you're going to need to filter out some information, and that's exactly what I feel like discernment is. Why am I making this rectangular shape? I'm making a fish tank, and I'm imagining a filter within the fish tank. The filter is what cleans the water. It's what keeps the aquatic plants and the fish healthy. Well, it's no different for your mind and for your soul. Discernment, imagine it as a filter within your soul, within your mind, that's helping you to clean out your system. Now, if we leave the filter untended to, it's going to become dirty, clogged, and it's not going to filter out our system very well and leave us with an unhospitable environment. But if we develop some awareness towards using discernment while we're taking in information, then we can properly filter in and out information, not to overload our minds with needless information that we do not need, to keep ourselves calm and balanced. So some tips and some advice with regards to using discernment while you're taking in information, because if you're going to go and research and try to understand what it is that's wrong with you, you're going to navigate a lot of information. Some of it's scary, some of it's beautiful, some of it's needless, and some of it will resonate. But it's up to you to be the observer, to be the one who is aware of what the information is actually doing to you. So take your time, be patient, pause when you need to pause, reflect on what you're taking in, and try to understand, is this information truly resonating with me, or do I need it at all? I think that's enough. Discernment. So yeah, please discern all information that you're taking in, not just with regards to research and understanding, but with regards to everything that you're doing. Because we're living in an information-filled society right now, and it's so easy to have our minds squambled by it all. Is squamble a real word? I don't know. But that's enough on discernment. Let's go over to the altar and let's speak about intuition. Welcome to the altar. This place is absolutely incredible. Isn't it fascinating that this altar, this church, was built roughly 900 years ago? And I'm sitting on the altar right now. I'm looking out at this church right now. I can actually visualize what it would have looked like while people were here. And I find myself sitting here before I take this video questioning, how many people lived here? How many people died here? How many people did it take to build this magnificent structure? It's just incredible. But anyway, we spoke about discernment just now, the filter that we will use to try and decipher what information is healthy for us and what information might not be. Now I want to speak a little bit about intuition and why that's important. I'm not going to go into grave detail because realistically your intuition is your own. But as we speak about in every episode, we're trying to develop a relationship with every aspect of ourselves, with our minds, with our bodies, with our souls, with our hearts, with our guts, our intuition, our emotions. And I am imploring you to take time to build a relationship with your gut, with your intuition, to try and communicate with it, to understand it and how it feels. Because realistically, a lot of the answers that you will seek in life come from within. So take the time to build a relationship with your gut and your intuition. It's super important. And not all of the answers that you are looking for will come from information on the internet or information from somebody else's mouth or a book. Sometimes the smaller answers just lie within. They reside in here. And all you have to do is take some time to breathe and relax and communicate with your intuition to find some of the answers that you truly seek. And that doesn't just relate to the idea of research and understanding. It relates to our entire lives. It relates to our relationships. It relates to every decision we ever make, to be honest. And let me give you a fine example of intuition and how it would have helped me along the way, because it might help you to understand what I'm saying a little bit more. When I travelled to Canada, funnily enough, I was starting to become quite interested in energy, in chakras, in alignment, in the more metaphysical side of life. Some of the interesting questions that I would have had as a child all the way up, I was starting to understand, maybe I should answer these. So I started to look into chakras and aligning. And the first chakra that really sparked my interest was the pineal gland. You know, synchronicity, eh? I went over to Canada. I began looking at Wim Hof breathing techniques, funnily enough. He's quite an interesting man. And then I started to try to access my pineal gland because I felt gravitated towards it. Every time I would sit in the lotus position, or at least as close as I could get, I still can't do it. My femurs are very long and I haven't dedicated myself enough time to becoming more mobile enough or flexible enough to do it. And I will. You might see that someday. But anyway, I went and started to access my pineal gland for the first time. And doing so, I consistently saw dark, terrifying imagery, which is really interesting to think about now. My intuition was kicking in. Before I felt any physical symptoms, my gut was telling me, my mind was telling me that there was something wrong with my pineal gland. Every time I tried to access it, I would see dark imagery, I would see pain, I would feel pain, I would get scared, I would get terrified. And these were the precursors to actual physical symptoms, but I wouldn't have known that at the time. I didn't have a great relationship with my intuition. Another fine example that I've already told you about is that when I was diagnosed with a pineal cyst in Ireland, I was left with no hope, or at least was told that I had no hope. And when I went home that night, throughout every interaction that I had with a medical professional along the way in this country, I had a gut feeling that, yeah, this can't be right. You know, I can't be creating these symptoms. These symptoms are real. Remember, I showed you a long list of them. And so I went with my gut instinct many, many times over my illness. My parents often comment on it still, that I wouldn't be here if I didn't do so. I went with my gut in terms of not taking certain medical professionals' word for gospel. I went with my gut in terms of, I need to look for some more information here. I went with my gut with regards to choosing the right surgeon to save my life. Oh, the list goes on and on and on. But I guess what I'm saying here is, don't be afraid to trust yourself, because you are the most important person in your life, and more often than not, you have the answers as well. So we have medical professionals and their advice. We have research and understanding and communicating with people who have already been through this situation to try and complement the information that you receive from that medical advice. We have using a filter, using discernment. We have trusting our intuition. And now we're going to move on to confirmation bias and trying to avoid falling into an echo chamber. So let's move to the courtyard over here, or at least that's what I'm calling it. And let's do some outdoor things. ourselves in a courtyard, or at least that's what I'm calling it. There's a graveyard here in the middle. You then have a pathway that follows the whole way around the graveyard. And I'd imagine it was some form of communal area for the people of the Priory when it was in its prime. I want to speak now a little bit about confirmation bias and what that is. So, if you are going to embark on an endeavour to find some information with regards to what it is that you're going through right now, more often than not, in the beginning phases, I know this from experience, we will look for this information coming from a place of fear, coming from a place of terror, because we're now trying to navigate these untethered waters, and more often than not, it's terrifying to navigate the initial phases of a diagnosis. I know that from experience. So what we will do is we will create another protective layer for ourselves, just like denial. This protective layer is another filter, you could say. We will often try to take information into this filter that only validates how we want to feel, because we're afraid of the information that might penetrate and emotionally trigger us. So we'll deflect away a lot of information. We will just avoid looking at it altogether, and we will only take in information that serves us right now. But here's the thing. If we continue to create a little tunnel of curated truth, an echo chamber of information that only serves what we want to hear, then most likely we will deflect away some of the information that, yes, might penetrate and might elicit an emotional response in us, but also some of the most emotionally triggering information is some of the most important information. And so, to break that down in a little synopsis, we have another protective layer. I don't know why I keep making that shape, but it's a protective layer, and it falls around us. It's called confirmation bias. It's called an echo chamber. It doesn't just happen when we're researching and understanding what it is that's wrong with us. A lot of people get trapped in bubbles of confirmation bias on a daily basis, on a lifelong basis. But sometimes the most important information lays in that deflected information that you're trying to push away. So if you have the courage and you have the curiosity to look at the information that you feel like is triggering you and you feel like you want to deflect, well then it might penetrate that protective layer and it might emotionally trigger you. It might elicit an emotional response or a physical response in you that you do not enjoy. So now let's speak about emotional triggers and how to deal with them. So, we've just spoken about confirmation bias and that protective layer. Now, we're grounded. My bare feet are on the grass and it feels really good. Why am I sitting on this side? Because I'm going to use the grass here as a blackboard or a chalkboard. I've just spoken about the protective layer that can sometimes shroud us when we're dealing with the initial phases of working on investigating what it is that is happening to us. That protective layer allows us to deflect away information that might be important but might elicit an emotional response within us. So now I'm going to give you some tips and some advice with dealing with the emotional triggers that might arouse within your research, within your understanding of what it is that's happening to you. I'm going to go into this in much more detail in a future episode, which will come up soon, dealing with emotions, dealing with emotional triggers, emotional regulation. But for now, we will specifically talk about dealing with emotional triggers with regards to research and information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list off a myriad of tips that may help you with regards to dealing with these emotional triggers as they arise. Okay, so the first tip is to pause if you feel overwhelmed. This one is really important I know this from experience that when we are in the initial phases of trying to figure out what it is that's happening to us, we want the information in as quick as possible, but it can be extremely overwhelming. So take your time, be patient, and if you are watching this episode, if you are reading an article, if you're having a conversation with someone, if you're on TikTok or on Instagram trying to find some information and you start to feel overloaded and you start to feel overwhelmed, then pause, take a break. You don't have to do it today, you don't have to do it tomorrow. You can take 10 minutes, you can take a half an hour, you can take a week. But pause, breathe and relax. Okay, and number 2, grounding techniques. So we've already paused now that we're overwhelmed. Why don't we do some breathing exercises? Why don't we go for a walk in the woods? Why don't we take our bare feet out and put them on the grass? Why don't we put our bare feet in the water? Why don't we do some mobility, some stretching, do some shaking, get some energy out? Be mindful. What does that mean? Mindfulness is something that I would have started to research when I was ill, to try and take my mind away from itself because it was unraveling itself so much while I was in a state of fight or flight trying to take in all of this information. So, to be mindful, I started to read books and I started to try and craft that skill. And it is something that you have to tend to on a daily basis. It doesn't just happen. But to craft that skill, it's something that I still hold to this day because I spent so much time with trying to craft it while I was ill. Mindfulness. Here's 2 tips that I can tell you right now that are coming off the top of my head, but to go outside, to use these grounding techniques, to walk in the nature, to follow birds, the sound of them, and watch them as they fly, because instead of you being trapped within your mind, you'll actually be watching birds and you'll be directly experiencing life rather than experiencing your unraveling mind. Another beautiful grounding technique and mindfulness technique is to go for a walk. I usually would suggest doing this in a tranquil area, especially if you're ill and you're trying to bring yourself down from overwhelm, but bring yourself to maybe a natural backdrop. Go for a walk, and when your mind starts to unravel itself and you start to feel that fight or flight response kicking in, start to take in really deep breaths and exhale very slowly and listen to your footsteps. And every time your mind starts to come back again, bring yourself back to your breath, bring yourself back to your footsteps. And this might happen every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds when you're beginning. But I promise you, 10 years from now, if you're only beginning your mindfulness journey, it will happen naturally. When you go for a walk, you'll watch the birds, you'll listen to your breath, you'll listen to your footsteps naturally. It's a beautiful thing. Number 3, try to identify what it is. Try to identify the emotional response, the emotional trigger. So if you're having a conversation with a doctor, or you're having a conversation with a friend or somebody who has experienced this before, or you're researching, and you start to feel the emotional triggers happening, you start to feel your body tense up, your shortness of breath, you start to want to X off these pages, you're starting to feel emotionally triggered and you want to deflect this information away. That's absolutely okay, but I think it would be a great practice for you to sit and just try to understand what it is that is coming up for you right now. What is this emotional response? What is this trigger? Is this a response to this information that I'm taking in right now? Does it remind me of something that happened within my childhood or throughout my life? And not to judge it, but just to try and understand what it is, so that as we continue to do this, we start to develop patterns and we start to understand these patterns a little bit more. We start to understand how to deal with them. Okay, and the next tip, journaling. I've spoken about this before and I will speak about this in a whole episode soon. But in terms of dealing with emotional triggers, I just told you about identifying triggers and identifying patterns and identifying whether they're from the present or the past. Well, journaling is a way for you to connect the dots. So if you're keeping a consistent journal throughout your days, throughout your weeks, with regards to what you're going through right now, with regards to the emotional triggers that are coming up for you, you'll slowly but surely start to develop patterns and start to connect dots. And so rather than all of this information staying within your mind and consistently looping around and around, you're bringing it into the physical reality, you're bringing it onto a page, you're connecting dots, but you're also allowing the information to come out of your mind and out of your soul and onto this page, so that when you're trying to sleep at night, or when you're trying to be mindful during a walk, instead of all of this information consistently rattling around in your head, you've actually put it somewhere that you've already started to decipher what it is. So if some of these trigger points start to come up while you're out for a walk, or while you're in your room, or wherever you are, you'll have information already digested within this journal of yours that might help you to quickly get through it in your mind. Rather than having to witness it unravel all the time, you'll actually start to connect the dots, and you'll start to free up space by journaling. Okay, and my next tip is to confide in loved ones, to confide in friends or professionals. We've already dealt with some of the more personal ideas when it comes to dealing with emotional triggers, the pausing when you're overwhelmed, the grounding techniques, identifying triggers, bringing them to a journal to try and develop patterns. But this journey of self-awareness, of trying to understand what it is that's happening to you, is extremely painful. And it is extremely difficult to do while isolated, and I know this from experience. So what I'm trying to get you to do is to confide in people. When you start to feel so overwhelmed that you can't do any of these things, it's always nice to have somebody to go to. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a distant loved one, maybe it's somebody on the internet, maybe it's a professional, which are really important, somebody who you can go speak to about this information, somebody who's neutral, who won't judge you, who will just take the information from you so that it's not overloading you. So yes, quite important to confide in people. And if you are struggling right now and you don't feel like you have anybody that you can go to or that you want to go to, and you'd like to leave a comment in this video that you want somebody to help you with, then absolutely go for it. And if you feel like you're insecure and you do not want to bring it to the public space, you can direct message me on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. You can email me. They're all within this channel, all of the links on the descriptions. And yeah, you can come to me, and I promise you I'll get to you as soon as possible. Okay, so I hope my little toolkit, my little list will help you with dealing with emotional triggers. Again, I am not a professional. These have helped me in the past and in the present, and will continue to in the future. And I will expand on them a lot more in a whole episode with regards to emotional regulation soon. But I'm trying to just pinpoint little tips and advice that will help you with dealing with emotional triggers as they arise while you're trying to understand what it is that's actually wrong with you. I'm not trying to deal with them in general. So look, if you feel like you can expand and you're somebody who has some more advice, please do feel free to share in the comment sections. And also, if you feel like you could expand on this yourself, go and research dealing with emotional triggers. There's so much information on the internet, and there's so much information within others and within professionals that you can take. But also, use discernment and don't be afraid to filter in and out some of the information that resonates with you and that doesn't. So, we're just about finished now. I want to speak about overconsumption of information and how we should avoid that. And I'll do that from another section of this Priory. Okay, and we find ourselves outside the Priory now. I'm leaving. This will be one of the last scenes. I hope that you've enjoyed it so far. I want to speak very briefly about overconsumption of information. So it's a beautiful thing that you find yourself here. You're watching this series, you're taking in information with regards to trying to help yourself through whatever it is that you're facing right now. And I'm proud of you, and I think you're amazing and well done. But look out for over-consuming information, okay? Sometimes we can fall into a pattern of consuming so much information that we don't actually experience life. And we use that information as a tool of distraction. Just like we could use alcohol or cigarettes or coffee or sex or self-harm, we can also use information in a very similar way. You'll notice that most of us and the world have a screen right now, and with new age information and new age social media platforms, it's very easy to fall into a cycle of consistently scrolling and not experiencing life out here. It's the same for when you're researching and trying to find information with regards to what's wrong with you. You can fall into a pattern of digesting information over and over again instead of actually living life because you're afraid of what your mind will present or what your soul will present to you. Just look out for it. Look out for it. Here's the tip. Okay? Knowledge is a beautiful thing. absolutely. But true wisdom comes from direct experience with the world, from lived experience. So think of it this way. Your mind is now gathering the tools for you. It's developing a toolkit, but your soul is the one who has to use them. So directly experience the world. Get your feet on the ground. Get yourself outside. Take a breath. Yeah, and directly experience life. I hope that this episode has been information filled and insightful for you. I very much enjoyed this morning and creating it. It has been a beautiful day. I'm extremely grateful for your existence, for my existence, and for the idea of trying to build this community. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you on the next episode. I love you. Have a fantastic existence, and I hope that you find some solace within this information and within this Priory. I'll see you next time.